Working Cows Podcast, Episode 7.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
This episode of the Working Cows Podcast is brought to you by Kamak Ranch Supply. Check out their website at kamakranchsupply.com. They understand the needs of ranchers and farmers, whether you need to take care of your livestock, horses, or even building supplies. They have everything you need to work your cows, whether that be the chute you work them through, the water you bring them to, or the tools you use to make them go up that chute a little bit faster. So check out their website at kamakranchsupply.com. This episode is also brought to you by ChrisWilliamsAudio.com. If you're a musician, podcaster, or filmmaker, making your product sound great is crucial. Don't settle for audio that's less than professional. No matter what type of audio service you need, Chris Williams and his team have got you covered. Head on over to ChrisWilliamsAudio.com for all your audio production needs. As I introduce Episode 7, I wanted to just take some time to talk to you about some of the networking opportunities that we have built into the Working Cows platform. Obviously, at the show notes page for each episode, this episode's show notes page will be workingcows.net/7. We always make it the actual number of the episode and workingcows.net/. So this is episode 7. Aaron Berger was episode 6. Fernando Falomir will be episode 8. There's a comment section there where you can go and start a discussion. The episodes also get posted to Facebook and Twitter. You can hit me up there and join in the discussion. You can like the Facebook page, facebook.com/workingcows. You can like that. And I wanted to take this opportunity to make you aware of some of these networking opportunities because my guest today is himself a networker. Josh Sybesma and I sat down and recorded this episode at the 100th Annual South Dakota Farm Bureau Convention. And every time Josh and I were standing somewhere together, he would turn to the person who was there with us and say, "Hey, have you heard about the Working Cows podcast?" So he was doing everything he could and more than he probably should have to help me network there, and I really appreciated it. So I just wanted to take some time and make you aware of this, and I hope that you enjoy this discussion with Josh Sybesma. He's from Platt, South Dakota, and they're doing some unique things there in a small space with quite a few head of cows, and if you pay attention, you can kind of figure out what they're running in that space, and I just wanted to put this out there before you. But do take the opportunity to network with us. You can contact us through the website, workingcows.net/contact. You can comment on the posts at each episode's post. You can hit me up on Twitter, twitter.com/YP Clay Conry, as in youth pastor Clay Conry, YP Clay Conry. You can like the Facebook page at facebook.com/workingcows. And I hope you enjoy this discussion with Josh Sybesma from Platt, South Dakota. Josh, thanks for joining me on the Working Cows podcast. I appreciate you taking some time out here as we are together at the South Dakota Farm Bureau annual convention, the 100th anniversary, actually. So if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself a little bit, tell us about who you are and how you came to be involved in the ranching industry and the capacity that you are right now.
Oh, thanks, Clay. Yeah, it's one of those stories. I guess it's like everybody else's story. I started out of high school, went to school for diesel technology, and up here in Sioux Falls, worked for John Deere construction equipment company up here in Sioux Falls for about 4 years, and finally got sick and tired of, I guess you say, corporate America. And decided it was time to maybe head back to the farm. I always grew up on the farm, helping Dad and whatnot. And you just finally got to the point I was sick of living the lifestyle I was living, and just felt like God had called me. It's time to go home. And so we packed my bags and I moved home. And I guess that's where my journey started long before that, but that's where the farming journey started. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. Been farming with Dad for 7 years now.
Any other siblings involved?
No, just me and my mom and dad and my wife when she can, and kind of keeps us busy. We got 2 kids, so it's always always hard to get out with her, but she enjoys coming out and helping me. So
Sure. Yep. It's great to have them around and able to be involved at home with the kids and involved in the production side when they can too.
yeah.
So what is your production? What are you guys producing there on your farm?
Well, we've got a feedlot. That's kind of Dad's deal. I help him with the cattle on that side quite a bit. We got a farm. We got corn and beans, and then hay. And then I do a lot of custom farming, do a lot of planting for guys, do a lot of combining and whatnot. I kind of started off as a custom combine operation, and it's just branched into a planting deal. Keeps me pretty busy on the farming side of things. And then on top of that, we built a shop back in 2011. Like I said, a diesel mechanic by trade. I love to fix, and so that was one of the things Dad did when a year after I moved back home, is that we put up a heated shop, and we've done a lot of projects in that shop for the farm. Whether it's working on the equipment, working on, I'm even bringing in equipment from other people. Doing custom, as a mechanic for them guys. So
Sure. And that's kind of part of what I hear a lot of as far as people coming back to the ranch, is that they've got to add something.
Yep.
They've got to add value somewhere. Is that kind of?
Yeah, very much so. Diversification is very huge in agriculture business. You look at everybody around, it's not just strictly farming, and when you strictly farm, you got to be either huge or it's going to be tough. I keep looking at my I guess you'd say repertoire of all the things that I do. It's just like, at what point am I going to slow down and, start saying no to some of the things? And another thing I forgot to say is I've got a couple other things I've got an excavator that I do some excavation work with, more for myself, but I also do some custom work. And then even trying to start up a precision planting business through a friend of mine, and just diversifying the business that we're in. It's a necessity in where we're at right now.
Finding your niche, right?
And that's the biggest thing. You find that niche, and it's very, just being in part of like the YF&R and just getting to know everybody throughout the state. Just seeing everybody else as, there's a niche. Everybody's got their little niche of what keeps them and gets them through. So
right. Networking is a big part of it too, and finding people that you can connect with and learn from, and maybe even partner with in something.
Absolutely. And that's something that my wife has pointed out to me, as I'm a networker. I love to network. I love to meet people, love to sit down and talk with them, and not, just learn about their operation and how they're doing it, not just to help me learn how to, what can I do to change the little things in my operation to diversify and make it better.
Sure. Yep. And that's part of, I think what we're about here at the Working Cows podcast is giving people an opportunity to be exposed to new and different ideas, and maybe challenge them and how they can change, because I think that human nature is that we don't want to change until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. And we've mentioned it here before, but it's important to continually remind ourselves that we don't want to get stuck in a rut. We want to find our niche, and we want to be willing to capitalize on opportunities as they come up.
Yeah, and that's, it's maybe easier for me to change and find that niche versus like my parents, just because of as you get older, it's harder to get out of your ruts, and it's even hard for me to get out of my ruts. It's something you have to strive daily in order to get, when you get up every day, that you make that decision, and I'm not going to do the same thing every day. What can I do differently?
Right. Yeah. And it's also with the older generation, it's also one of those things where there's more at stake for them to take a risk.
Yeah.
You know, we've got more time to recover from a failure, you know, and that's something I think that is important for us to remember, and that we should be in this stage of life a little bit more open to taking some risks, so that, you know, if it goes big and goes well, you know, we have more time to capitalize on it. And if it goes bad, we have some more time to recover from it. So, what are some of the things that you guys are doing? You guys are farming. What else are you doing? What are some of the other pillars of the operation that you're a part of there?
Well, like I said, you're, diversifying. So we got the custom farming. We're farming. We put up all our hay. Biggest thing, and one thing you wanted to talk to me about was we just got done building a hoop barn. It's been something Dad's been thinking about for quite a few years. I was pretty skeptical about the whole situation. Again, like I said, I never was the big cattle guy, but I do enjoy them. But like I said, he does the farming, I do he does the cattle, I do the farming. But on top of that, he helps me farm, I help him with cattle.
Right.
So we got the hoop barn with we got a cow calf operation in that. And then we're feeding cattle. We got a feedlot, about a 600 head feedlot that we're feeding cattle on. So
sure. Tell me about the region that you're in. What's kind of the typical operation around you doing as far as their production?
Well, basically what we're doing, a lot of farming. A lot of corn and beans and wheat. The cattle, there's cattle around, but a lot of feedlots. Back when corn was $7, you seen a lot of pasture get tore up. And a lot of guys, the cow herds kind of went down and people sold out. And so, to find pasture is tough. So, like I said, it's kind of geared more towards the farming side of things where I'm at. We're just on the east side of the river, kind of the southern part of South Dakota.
And so for those guests that are not familiar with South Dakota geography, Josh is in Platte, South Dakota, just east of the Missouri River, which kind of splits the state into two halves. And we talk about eastern and western South Dakota. And really, the geography is different, the topography is different, and the economies are different. The western side of the state tends to produce a lot more of the cow-calf side of things, and the eastern side of the state tends to do a lot more of the backgrounding and the feeding of cow-calf. But if you find cows in the eastern side of the state, a lot of them are in feedlots, and a lot of those feedlots are in marginal ground that they couldn't use for farming, basically. And so they did the next most profitable thing with it, and they started feeding some cows. So what does being in that region present to you as far as a challenge when it comes to operating a cow-calf operation? Because as we said, a lot of the guys around you are backgrounding, are feeding cows. What kind of a challenge does that present to you when it comes to raising a mama cow and her baby?
Well, there's challenges, but there's also, good things about it. The biggest challenge is pasture. Like I said, back when corn was, went up to $7, we seen a lot of pasture ground, marginal pasture ground that got tore up. When I started dating my wife, she grew up by Gettysburg, South Dakota. And as I would drive up there, it seemed like, as the years went on, more pasture got tore up. And that, as that pasture gets tore up, it doesn't get put back into pasture when the corn goes down to $2 again, because it's nice to keep that in production. So to find pasture is very tough. We've rented pasture all over, within 60 to 80 miles of the farm, and run all over the country trying to run cows. And then, of course, when you get cattle, stupid things happen. You go try to figure out. They get out in the most inopportune times, and that's when you're running cattle, it's just normal. But it just got really old watching, having to go run for cattle all the time. And then you get a deal where you're renting, and all of a sudden the renter decides to pull it, and then there you sit. What do you do with these cows? You got to downsize. And we finally just get sick and tired of that.
What were some of the kind of going rates as far as pasture rent in your part of the world? Do you know?
I don't really remember. It changes. I mean, every month it changes, or every year it changes.
Right.
But
it's cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense to try and graze cows where you're at, because people can afford to pay so much more for land that they're going to put into a row crop than you guys can.
And we've got some deals where we've got some pastures, some smaller pastures, but when you only can run, 15, 20 head on per pasture, it gets kind of frustrating as the years go on. Of how do I keep, I want to keep growing, but a lot of years we, especially years where it's dry, we're bringing them cows home, weaning calves early, and we're having to dry lot our cows. And we've done that quite a few years, which kind of led into what I was talking about, the building of the barn.
Sure.
The hoop barn.
So you said that your region presents some challenges, but it also presents some opportunities. What are some of those opportunities that are presented when it comes to a cow-calf operation?
Well, the biggest, probably one of the biggest things that is a plus about being where we're at. We have a lot of fall grazing, especially when you get a good fall, a winter that holds off. We're running corn stalks pretty heavy. And that's really nice to be able to they're cleaning up the corn. They're tromping the stalks down into the field. They're starting that composition, and they're returning the organic matter back into right into the crop, into the ground again. Those are the kinds of things and it takes a lot of pressure off, because you don't have to feed them quite as much, and they're getting supplemented in the corn stalks, and we run them on bean stalks as well.
Sure. Some of the best thing for a field is to get a ruminant on it and get them processing that. And, we had a couple episodes ago, we talked to Paul Youngnich from Alberta Ag and Forestry, and he made the point that their urine is urea. It's fertilizer. It's nitrogen that you're putting back out there.
Yep.
And it's a lot cheaper than it is going over that with a tractor. So
a lot cheaper.
So anytime you can get those little mobile fertilizer units out there and let them do the work for you, it's better that way as well. So the crop residue is a big advantage in the fall, and talk about how you guys are realizing that advantage.
Well, just being able to go in there and plant it. Me being the farmer in me, it's so much nicer to go in there. You don't have near the stalks, and we actually go roll our fields into the spring before we plant. It's saves on tires and saves on wear and tear, but also gets the rocks down. But the material that is in a roll or a graze field is so much less versus a non-graze field. I haven't done any soil tests, to see, how much of a difference it is, but I mean, I would say that it's helping some.
Right.
So
sure. So we are going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. When we come back, we're going to get to this issue of the hoop beef system that they have put in there on their operation. We're talking with Josh Sybesma, and we will be right back. This episode has been brought to you in part by ChrisWilliamsAudio.com. If you're a musician, podcaster, or filmmaker, don't settle for audio that's less than professional. Head on over to ChrisWilliamsAudio.com for all your podcasting, music production, and film audio needs. All right, we're back with Josh Sybesma. We're talking about some of the advantages and the opportunities and the challenges of trying to be a cow-calf operation in a place that is dominated by row crops and farming. And we've talked a little bit about this idea of a hoop beef system. And for a long time, when I was first hearing about these, there were people talking about putting up hoop barns. And we have Hutterites here, and I couldn't tell if they were talking about putting up a hoot barn or a hoop barn. And then I got to hear a presentation on the hoop beef systems, which we will link to some pretty informative YouTube videos regarding those in the show notes page at workingcows.net/7, workingcows.net/7. We will link to some information on the hoop beef systems and some of the things that we've been talking about here today, in connection with soil health and grazing corn stalks and some of that stuff. But if you want more information on any of that, check out workingcows.net/7, and we will get you pointed in the direction of some of those resources. But let's get to the hoop beef system. What is a hoop beef system? Let's just start out base level and define it.
Well, a hoop beef system is it's a 44 by 400 foot barn hoop structure. And this is what the product that we bought from Hoop Beef. They are a company that designs barns for cows. So it kind of started off as Dad has been looking into this. And he kept mentioning, I think we need to do something like this. I think we need to do something like that. Well, I kind of, okay, whatever. Well, finally he come to me and says, hey, I got a guy coming to talk to us about this barn. We had a neighbor that put one of these up and seemed like he was doing all right with it. So we went and looked at it, and it was really, really interesting that day when we went over there. It was kind of half rainy. It was the spring of the year, one of them cold 35-degree days. We're all bundled up in coats and whatnot, and we walk over there, looked at the cows, and the cows were standing in there dry. They weren't warm because it's once you get in and out of the barn, it's about the same temp, but they were dry, comfortable, and enjoy where they were at. So kind of back to what it is. It's a structure. The barn itself, like I said, is 44 feet deep and then 400 feet wide or long. We've got 10 different pens in there. The bunk is on the outside underneath the eave, and then you have what they call the drover's alley and then the pack. So the drover's alley is 15 feet. The pack is the rest of the way. What I mean by pack is we blow hay, straw, corn stalks into the back of the barn for bedding. It's what they call a pack barn. We have our cows in there. Like I said, the feed bunks are outside. We go feed them there. And then the drover's alley, that's where they stand. That's cement. They can get water right there. We actually clean that drover's alley 2-3 times a week. Depends on what the humidity is for the year or for the week. Anyways, that's kind of what the gist of it. Them cattle are in there all year long. We can hold about 20 head per pen. We calve them out there. They're bred in there. Them cattle don't leave.
Well, that's what we're here to do at the Working Cows podcast, is give people a place to share paradigm challenging practices. And that is a paradigm challenger for sure. So one of the things that was brought to my attention when I was first exposed to the hoop beef system or hoop barns in general, now that there are some things I think that as far as I know, make hoop beef systems somewhat proprietary in their product, as far as they're the only ones offering it in the format that they offer it. But there are lots of people out there that do different types of this system. So
they're similar, but they're, everybody's got their little, it's again a niche,
right?
We talked about, and
Yep. And so when I was exposed to it, what was pointed out to me was that the difference between what a cow needs if her coat is dry and what a cow needs if her coat is wet. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, again, I'm still new, getting new about it. It's a totally different way of feeding cattle. Cows out in the pasture, you bring your load out there and you dump the whole thing out. What they get. They go out and scour around for more. They just keep eating. In the barn, it's a limit. It's a limit feed. I mean, a cow can eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. In the barn, I don't want that cow to eat and eat and eat and eat, because the more she eats, the more she craps. And the more she craps, the more I got to clean. But back to your comment about, being dry. Who likes to stand out in the rain? What happens when you're cold and wet? You feel like crap. You get sick. In the barn, you don't have that. Them cattle stand there when it's raining out or snowing out or it's blowing out, and they're just kind of standing there like, this is good. Stuff like that. It's a different way of feeding and looking at cattle. There's no wrong and there's no right per se about it. But
sure. Yep. It's just you adapting to your environment.
Yep.
You guys are in a place that's challenging to find grass to lease. And I think that, where I'm at in Western South Dakota, grass isn't like easy to come by, but it's easier to come by than it is in Eastern South Dakota.
Yeah.
And so, you got to You still got to do all the work of finding it and keeping up a good relationship, but we can find grass if we have to. In eastern South Dakota, sometimes it isn't there.
Yeah.
And if it is there, it's too dang expensive to use. And so you guys adapted to your situation and you found something that would work. So this keeps cows dry, keeps cows happy, and you're feeding them. What about ventilation? I think that's some of the concern that you're going to hear from people who are aware of confinement type operations. What about ventilation? How about the actual ground that they're standing in? What's that look like?
Like I said, you clean the front drover's alley out, that's cement. The pack, is we're blowing in straw, and we do that about 3-4 times a week. You try to keep that as dry as you can, but yet, they still stomp it down. They still eat it, but it's a nice, when they lay down, they enjoy laying down there. So it's not wet. It's not like they're standing in 10 inches of mud all the time. They can lay down and it's like laying on a nice bed. Frustrating thing, you're dealing with, like you said, ventilation. This spring was a really kind of a damp, wet spring. There's a lot of ventilation in that barn. It's very interesting. You go stand on the back wall we've got a curtain in the back wall that I think it's like a 4-foot curtain we can open and close. Usually have it closed in the winter. In the summer, we have it wide open unless we get a thunderstorm coming through. And if we can get out there in time to get it shut, we want to, because otherwise the rain pours in there and makes a mess of the back. It's really kind of interesting. You're standing in there with the curtains closed, and you never would, if the wind is just right on the back wall, if you take like the dust from the bales you grind, you can take that dust and push that in there, and that dust will actually float. So that right there tells me there is a ton of ventilation. I mean, the airflow, and that's how they designed the building, is there's an airflow that just keeps continuously going in there. Again, it all has to do with humidity, but it also, when it's hot, when it's 100 degrees out, it's amazing. When you step out in that sun, just underneath the tarp or the building, it drops 5-10 degrees, and it's refreshing in that sense. So
sure. And we actually toured Josh's barn, and we went and toured another one out in Minnesota. It was interesting to me, or one of the questions that came up for us is, what about scours and some of those concerns with calves and things like that? Are they able to get access to sunshine to help with some of that kind of stuff, or is that a challenge that you guys face?
That is a challenge. This is actually we'll be completed in our first year now. Will be our second. So it's a learning curve. It's kind of funny, you get the sun just right, them calves will go lay up in the front, and that sun will just sneak in underneath that south wall, and you just see them calves laying there nice, and they still enjoy it. No, it's not. Them cows aren't on green grass, and those calves ain't running around and hopping around. But again, when you're looking at the cost effectiveness of buying pasture for that many cows versus the building we got there, it's a kind of a no question, no brainer.
Sure.
But we've had our struggles with sick calves. Thankfully, we had a team. Our vet worked well with us. We had a gal from Zoetis was working with us really, really, really well. She came in and guided us in where we needed to go with it, and we were able to. It wasn't necessary. It was more respiratory sicknesses, dealing with pneumonia, and we're not sure where it all stemmed from, but we're able to majority get over it, be able to treat it.
Sure. So you said that you're cleaning that barn 2 to 4 times a week, something like that?
Yeah. We get a skid steer. We run in there and we'll clean the drover's alley out, and then once a week we'll just clean the front of the pins out. And just take a couple scoops up. We've got a barn, another hoop building to the west of the barn that it's got 8-foot sidewalls, cement sidewalls with another hoop structure on top of that we push the manure in. It's a manure storage facility that we stockpile manure in for when we haul it out later.
Yep. And you had to build that in a certain way because of South Dakota regulations, correct?
Yes, there was some money out there that we procured. That was one of their regulations, that we put up a manure storage shed in the state of South Dakota. I can't remember if it was 60 days or 90. I can't remember the days, but we can actually only have manure uncovered for a certain amount of days.
Sure.
In an area.
Where's that going?
The manure?
Yep.
Well, on the fields.
Yeah. Does it end up back on some of the same fields that the crops that they were eating came off of?
Yep.
That's a good thing, right?
It's kind of amazing to how much we actually had the NRCS come out and took samples of the manure and weighed our manure spreader and figured out how many tons we were putting down on a pass when we go out and spread it, and then figured out all our the nutrients we were putting down through the test, and figured we were putting probably more than we should have been down on the ground, but at that point we were putting it on grass, so it needs it, so we were pushing it a little harder. It's very interesting. I didn't realize we could do that until these guys came out and we were talking. Oh yeah, that's a free. They didn't charge us anything to come do it. And,
sure.
But we scaled the manure spreader with a load on it, and then we went out and spread it, measured everything up. They had their formulas. It took a couple of days, but they got it. Sent me all the paperwork back. So,
nice.
And that right there is a huge cost saver for going out and buying fertilizer from town and putting it down on the ground.
Yeah.
So, and we're not going to be able to cover all our ground with it, but you keep moving. If you can't just keep spreading it on the same place, you got to go, move it all over we've got a section there to work with. We're getting to those places that hasn't had manure spread on it probably ever from, when my grandpa owned the place.
Yeah. Yep. And I it goes back to just that key element of being in this industry is adaptability, and you guys have found yourself in a challenging situation from a cow-calf perspective where you're at, and you guys have found a way outside the box, as it may be, to adapt to that and make it a benefit to kind of your core business of your operation. Is that accurate to?
Yeah. Like I said, it's probably not something we wanted to do. Dad's dream was always to have 3,000 or 4,000 acres of grassland and a nice big ranch. Fortunately, like we've talked about, those opportunities weren't around where we were at. So we made those opportunities, and we're making, doing our best to manage them opportunity. Yeah, we've got a lot of irons in the fire. Again, it's adapting to where we need, to try to stay afloat.
It's a heck of a lot cheaper than trying to start from scratch somewhere else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is true.
So, Josh, I thank you for your time today. Is there anything you want to share before we sign off here?
Oh, I don't know. Just for those that are just starting, I challenge you to keep working hard. You get up in the morning and make those decisions of I'm gonna accomplish something today. I struggle with it some days. I look at the operation that my dad has built, and I sit there and wonder, how in the world am I going to get there? But it's getting up one day at a time, putting your boots on, and going and doing it. And there's going to be ups and downs. I've had my struggles, but you know what? I've had good days. It's been a heck of a year. We got hailed out, back in August. I watched a really, really beautiful crop of beans just get leveled to the ground. But you know what? The good Lord will watch over us, and you keep moving. And he's taking care of us. Mm-hmm. And that's the only, that's the only thing that keeps me going. I think some days is, knowing that the good Lord's watching over me, and my wife and my kids are always there. I got family that helps me out, and we just keep doing what we're doing and take one day at a time.
Amen to that. Thank you for your time today. Thanks for sharing with us. And we will have links to all the resources we mentioned. Any resources that you want to give me, we can make a list, and we will have links to those up at workingcows.net/7. So check out that show notes page at workingcows.net/7, and we will see you next week. This episode has been brought to you in part by Camac Ranch Supply. Check out their website at camacranchsupply.com. Maybe we challenged your paradigm in a little bit different way than you are used to. I hope that you enjoyed this episode with Josh Sybesma. Very interesting discussion about some out-of-the-box things that they are doing that were necessary for them to adapt to their environment. I encourage you to tune in next week. Very interesting discussion with a rancher from Mexico. Fernando Falomir is a producer in Mexico, and if you think that your resource base can be an excuse for why you can't ranch in a way that is out of the box, I think Fernando might burst that bubble just a little bit. So I would encourage you to tune in next week to our episode with Fernando Falomir on the Working Cows podcast.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.